Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this press conference for the U.S. bipartisan delegation of the Congressional Taiwan Caucus. In the beginning, allow me to introduce our special guest, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kelly Shea. The U.S. Representative Mario Diaz-Balart, co-chair of the U.S. Congressional Taiwan Caucus. U.S. Representative Amy Bera, co-chair of the U.S. Congressional Taiwan Caucus. Ambassador Alexander Yu, Taiwan's representative to the United States. And first, I would like to invite Deputy Minister Shea to address the audience.
Well, this is going to be very short, just an introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am absolutely delighted and honored to have with us today two longtime friends of Taiwan from the Congress of the United States. Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, a Republican from Florida, and Congressman Amy Bera, a Democrat, loyal Democrat from California, two of the four co-chairs of the bipartisan U.S. Congressional Taiwan Caucus. And of course, we have our ambassador, His Excellency Ambassador Yu, here also with us. Congressman Diaz-Balart and Congressman Bera are the first Congressional Taiwan Caucus co-chairs delegation to visit Taiwan in recent years. And equally eye-catching, if not more, they are the first U.S. CODEL to come here right after our presidential election. They bring their congratulations to the President-elect, Dr. Lai Ching-te, and Vice President-elect, Zhao Meiqin. Also, they are here to pay their respect and show their appreciation for the success of the entire fair, just, and transparent election. They have particularly come with a strong and clear message that the U.S. Congressional Taiwan Caucus and indeed the whole U.S. Congress will continue to support Taiwan's democracy, security, and prosperity. For the past 2 days, including today, they have met with President Tsai Ing-wen, Vice President and President-elect Dr. Lai, and Vice President-elect Ambassador Xiao. They also have meetings with our National Security Circle people and various political leaders. And of course, later on, they will be meeting with Foreign Minister Joseph Wu. Finally, I would like to point out very quickly that the Congressional Taiwan Caucus is the largest overseas-related caucus in the U.S. Congress, and that co-chairs Diaz-Balart and Bera have long been genuine friends of Taiwan, instrumental in many legislations and statements supporting Taiwan and U.S.-Taiwan relations over the years. So I would like to ask Congressman Diaz-Balart and Congressman Bera to give their remarks, then they will take questions. So shall we have Congressman Diaz-Balart first, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. It is truly a pleasure to be here. And I think it's important to note that this is a delegation, a bipartisan delegation, made up of two of the four co-chairmen of the Taiwan Caucus in the House of Representatives. And even though we're half of the co-chairmen, but we can speak not only for the four co-chairmen, which are both Republicans and Democrats, but also for the entire Taiwan Caucus, as you just heard, and it's the largest caucus in the House of Representatives. And this is a very busy time for the Congress of the United States. But we felt that it was important to come now. Come now and show solidarity and appreciation for, as you just heard, for another transparent election in Taiwan. We understand the pressures and the attempted coercion of the Chinese Communist Party, and yet the Taiwanese people spoke loud and clear. So again, we're here to show appreciation and solidarity and support for Taiwan. Taiwan is a beacon of hope and of light and of freedom and of democracy And it's such a direct contrast to what we're seeing coming from the Communist Party of China. So on behalf of the people that we represent, in a bipartisan way, we come to show appreciation and support and steadfast support for Taiwan. And while governments come and go everywhere, including in the United States, the pillar of the relationship between the United States and Taiwan in the United States has always been the United States Congress. And just please be reassured that that support is as strong today as ever. And again, so it's a privilege to be here with you today, and we look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. Thank you for your nice words. Next, I would like to invite Representative Bera to have a few words for us.
Thank you. This is an important time in the region, across the straits, and in the world. And, you know, as having the honor to be one of the co-chairs of the Taiwan caucus, but also being a senior member on the Foreign Affairs Committee and the ranking Democrat that has responsibility for the Indo-Pacific, we're paying attention. And it's very important for us to be here, not just to meet with the political leadership, to talk about and reassure the strength of the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, to celebrate a free and fair election and a vibrant democracy, but to also remind the people of Taiwan that a foundational principle of the Taiwan Relations Act, which was enacted 45 years ago by the United States Congress, is that the future of Taiwan shouldn't be dictated by any external power, but the future of Taiwan is up to the people of Taiwan. That is a foundational principle of the Taiwan Relations Act. That is why so many members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, fundamentally support Taiwan. Again, let me remind that, and I think it is important for us to speak directly to the people of Taiwan, that your future is up to you. And I think that's something that we saw in this election. It's important, you know, when we think about the future that we want for our world, that we want for our children and grandchildren, that it's that same prosperous future. I hear President Tai, I hear President-elect Lai. They're not about changing the status quo. In fact, the United States of America is not about changing the status quo. We can look at the past few decades, we can look at the 75 years post-World War II, and understand that this was a peaceful, prosperous time. I'm always reminded, you know, when we were out in Taipei last night, the food is very good in Taiwan. So, but you see the young people living their lives, the vibrancy, living their dreams. That's what we all want as parents. And that's what this is about, is allowing people to choose their futures, what they want, how they want to live, how they want to be governed. And that's why this is so important. Because I'd like the next 75 years to be the same peaceful, prosperous times that we've seen in the last 75 years. I think that's what we want as the United States Congress. I think that's what the people of Taiwan want. I think that's what the people of this region want. And it's important for us because it's not a given. We're not changing the status quo, but we have to respond to external pressures and others that potentially are changing that status quo. It's not about seeking conflict. It's about seeking peace, prosperity, and the right to your own future. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you to the reception that we've received from the administration and the meetings that we've had, but also thank you to the people of Taiwan. I represent California, and we have a vibrant Taiwanese American diaspora, and they would, you know, be mad at me if I didn't thank the United States and Taiwan for that close friendship. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Before I open the floor to questions, So may I invite both representatives to the front? The delegation has a very busy schedule, so I will take 4 questions only. So if the media friends have questions, please raise your hand, have your name and the medium you belong to before your question. Sir.
Hi, this is Henry for Taiwan Central News Agency. My question is, as you might know, the Pacific nation Nauru has formalized relation with Beijing, switching from Taipei. And China's action is seen as breaking the U.S. second island chain strategy in the Pacific. How do you think the U.S. should respond to Beijing actions and how to work with Taiwan diplomatic partners in the Pacific region? Thank you.
So I think you've seen various pieces of legislation that have been introduced in the United States Congress, as well as the resolutions and the like, talking about the importance of Taiwan's participation in international organizations, emphasizing Congress's support. I think you hear those statements out of the Biden administration as well. In addition, we have legislation, bipartisan legislation, that's moving forward to look at the economic coercion that Beijing will often exert on countries that are recognizing Taiwan. A great example is Lithuania. And I think it's important for not just the United States, but Europe and others to stand firmly with those countries and others, because the economic retaliation is not against the United States. It's against smaller countries and others that may not be able to withstand that. And we should have the tools and the resources, working with our like-valued allies, to support the courage of individual countries to choose their own path forward.
Ben.
Thank you. I'm Ben Blanchard from Reuters. Taiwan has complained over the last couple of years of delays in deliveries of weapons from the United States, like Harpoon missiles, Stinger missiles. I know there's been pressure from US lawmakers to try and speed this up. Now we're at the beginning of a new year. What progress would you expect to see on these delayed weapons deliveries? Thank you.
Look, that's been a frustration. And I think also the conflicts in Europe, now in the Middle East, has kind of shown some of the problems that we've had and that we continue to have. It's not only a problem the United States have, we're showing Europe is having the same issues, right? And so we can't take for granted. For years, every time there's a conflict, then there isn't, and we talk about the peace dividend, and we kind of relax our defenses and our, which creates a problem for our ability to produce when we need to. And so I think there's no silver lining to what's happening in Europe. There's no silver lining to Putin's aggressive action. But I think it has been a wake-up call for the United States and our allies. And so we're starting to see some progress there. I think you're going to continue to see progress there. But there is no silver magic bullet either that can just get everything going overnight. And so we're in the process now in Congress to do the appropriations and the budgets. I think you're going to see now a pretty healthy increase in defense spending to make sure that we have the ability to ramp up. One of the things that we've talked about many times, in the case of Russia, you're seeing that they're pretty much converted to a wartime economy. And so we can't take it for granted. And so it is frustrating, but I'm optimistic that you're going to see some pretty concrete improvements. And part of that is that we have to be dedicated to spending what we need to spend in order to do that. Now, we've had some really good meetings here. I think we keep hearing that there's a pretty strong consensus to also make sure that Taiwan continues to do its part. That has been a shared frustration also with Europe. As you know, a lot of the countries don't even fulfill their requirements under NATO. And so, I think all of us have to be more serious. I think in the United States, you're going to see that we're stepping up. Others have to step up. But I'm pretty optimistic as to what I see. What we've seen in Europe, right, is heck, because of the aggressive action of Putin, and we've got 2 new member states of NATO, right, 2 that you would have said would never do it. So I think the world is starting to wake up to that reality.
I would just add, I mean, as I mentioned in my opening comments, we really have lived through decades of relative peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. And it wasn't the United States that chose to try to create more tensions here. It's not the people of Taiwan that are choosing to create more tensions here, but we have to respond to that. Europe has been relatively peaceful and prosperous, but we've seen with Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, a renewed tension, a big country war. The production lines probably did atrophy and were slower than they need to be. These production lines take time to ramp up, to address it, and now we see a conflict in the Middle East. There is pressure on U.S. defense industries to ramp that up. Certainly we see the urgency, and the goal here is not to invoke conflict. The goal here is to deter conflict, but the deterrence will come from strength and the ability to defend itself. So I think within Congress, there is a recognition of the importance to get these indigenous production lines in the United States up and running, modernized, working with industry, but also then to work with friends and allies to, in the region to also create some production lines.
And very briefly, I can just add one last thing. So, we, just like in Europe, it was a wake-up call for Europe. I think you're seeing it in this part of the world too, right? And you're starting to see a little bit of a change in attitude in many cases because of the aggressive nature of the Chinese dictatorship.
Hewen.
Hi, this is Mark from United Daily. My first question is, after Taiwan's presidential election, do you think cross-strait has since entered a new phase where both sides can have tremendous opportunity to engage in new dialogues? Would you advise President-elect Lai to take the first step? And also, the United States presidential election is coming up later this year. The anticipated result at the moment is rumored to have change the U.S.-Taiwan relationship. So do you think U.S. stance on supporting Taiwan will change after the election? Thank you.
I'll take the first one and I'll let you take the second one. I don't think we are going to have dialogue with President-elect Lai. We're going to have dialogue with the administration. And dialogue with adversaries is never a bad thing, to keep open lines of communication. That said, we anticipate over the next 3 months before the inauguration that we'll see Beijing choose to do some things. My message to Beijing is don't do that. Let's take a different path forward to maintain the status quo, to maintain peace and prosperity in the region. They may not be listening to me. That said, I think we've seen the Biden administration with high-level visits. You've seen the presidential summit in San Francisco and the conversation. I think we should keep lines of communication open. That's my opinion. But I think we need to do that from a place of strength, not a place of weakness.
And as far as changing, nobody can predict what's going to happen in the U.S. elections, right? I mean, but I'm actually very confident that regardless of what happens, first place, as I mentioned at the onset, that pillar of the relationship between Taiwan and the United States is really the fundamental part of that pillar is the United States Congress, and I think we represent. We're from different parties. California, Florida, but if you look at the entire caucus, it's an absolutely bipartisan caucus, and so that's going to remain regardless of what happens. There's very strong understanding in Congress and very strong support for Taiwan, and I'm actually very confident that will remain regardless of who is in the White House. Now, campaigns are always fun things. So will you potentially hear things said? And yeah, that's always the case. I wouldn't presume, but I'm assuming that happens here as well, right? But I'm very confident in just how solid the relationship is, the realization of the importance of the relationship, and the fact that Taiwan, because of what it is, it's a shining star. And so I'm very confident that relationship will be as strong as ever. And it's reflected by us being here today. He mentioned it, I should have. So we are both co-chairman of the Taiwan Caucus. But he is, on top of that, separate to that, he's a very well-respected senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives, in the specific subcommittee that deals with this part of the world. In my role, I am chairman of the subcommittee that in the House that is in charge, in essence, of deciding the funding for everything that has to do with foreign policy, diplomacy and foreign policy. And so we are obviously here as co-chairman of the Taiwan Caucus. But I think it's also interesting to note that we have, as our other responsibilities, we have direct roles to play as well. And so I think I know I can speak for him, that we feel very confident in the support, the bipartisan nature of the support for Taiwan in the U.S. Congress, and I'm very confident that that will continue regardless of any change or any no change in the upcoming presidential and congressional elections.
Thank you. And Taiwan News.
Calvin Chen from Taiwan News. Is Congress currently taking any substantial steps to facilitate the inclusion of Taiwan in the CPTPP and the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity? Thank you.
Sure. So certainly you're seeing increased conversations. And again, I think this is a place where Congress is pushing the Biden administration on the trade front. I'd love to see Taiwan in CPTPP. I would love to see the United States of America in CPTPP first. But short of that, what we have is IPEF. And I do think, on some of these pillars of trade, of normalization, you are seeing movement in the Biden administration. I also think you're seeing important legislation like double taxation that's moving through Congress in a bipartisan way. I can't predict what the future looks like, but I certainly am optimistic that we will address this issue, which will be good for the companies and the economy here in Taiwan, but certainly for us in the United States as well.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I see it the same way he does. And there are also some other concrete things that Congress is doing. You mentioned the double taxation issue. Foreign military finance. For the first time ever in the House appropriation bill, there is $500 million there. And so now we've got to go through negotiations, and the legislative process is always interesting. But again, it just shows you the level of the fact that Taiwan is not on the back burner. It's not something that we don't remember. It is in our thoughts, and Congress has been very aggressive in a very positive way to do not only in words but in action some good concrete things. And I think you're going to see some more taking place in the very, very near future.
So, okay, maybe we can have the last question. So, the gentleman in the back.
Hello, welcome to Taiwan. My name is Daijin Wu. I represent the Associated Press. I just have one question. In the face of the daily military threats of China towards Taiwan, what are your expectations for the new elected government? How should it behave or respond in the face of these daily military threats of China? Thank you.
Unfortunately, that's not a surprise. I think all of us understand what we're dealing with when you're dealing with the CCP. It's unfortunate, but it's not a surprise. It's very clear that the Taiwanese people, despite those threats, have actively participated in an election, and we saw once again a transparent, clear election here in Taiwan. And as my colleague said, I don't think we should be surprised if they continue to do that. And I would not be surprised if they continue to do that until the swearing in of the new president and potentially after that. But it's important not to be to fold to that kind of pressure. I'm a firm believer in, what Ronald Reagan used to say, peace through strength. Nobody wants confrontation. But it's important that Taiwan do its part to let the Communist Party in China know that it will not roll over. And I think you're seeing some of those concrete steps that have been taken by the last government and by this government in Taiwan, including some things that I know that potentially internally might be controversial, but that are important, so that there is no confusion that Taiwan will defend herself. But it's also important for everybody to know that the United States also stands with Taiwan. And that's why we decided to come here now, not wait, 3 or 4 months, to come here now to send a very clear message of that strong support. And I think, by the way, you're also going to see, this is the first of the bipartisan delegations. I think you're going to see more bipartisan delegations showing support for Taiwan and also sending a message to the end of the world, to all of the rest of the world, which is that the United States continues to stand with Taiwan, and that that pressure and that coercion is not something that we can tolerate, which you can stand by and just accept. But I'm very, very optimistic, because you've seen the people of Taiwan, once again, leading and showing what democracy looks like. And that's a threat to the Communist Party of China, but so be it. Taiwan is a symbol of freedom, of prosperity, of democracy. We're very proud to be here supporting Taiwan under those circumstances and at this time, which is why, again, we wanted to be here.
And I would just add, the people of Taiwan are not seeking conflict. The people of the United States are not seeking conflict in this region. As I said in my earlier comments, this has been a peaceful and prosperous region for everyone in Asia, probably no country more so than China. So the goal here is to maintain the status quo. Your president has said that, your president-elect has said that. But we have to respond to increased aggressions. Those aggressions are not coming from Taiwan, they're not coming from the United States. But the response is, if we want that peaceful, prosperous future, if we want open navigation, we have to deal with those challenges today. And that's why it was important for us to be here. It was important for us to welcome the next administration. But it's important to speak directly to the people of Taiwan that your future is your future. And you've done nothing provocative other than to exercise your right to vote and choose your own future. And that's a bedrock principle. So at the end of the day, that's the principle that we hold firmly as the United States Congress.
Thank you, Representatives.
Thank you.
Due to the schedule, I am afraid I have to conclude this press conference. So at the request of the media, so I would like to invite Deputy Minister Xie and Ambassador Yu moving to the front for a group photo. Thank you. Let me once again thank the delegation of the U.S. Congressional Taiwan Caucus traveling far away from here, from United States to be here with us. I would also like to thank everyone for attending this press conference. Thank you, and I wish everyone a wonderful evening. 媒体朋友可能先稍后的原地，我们等客人离开之后，我们再。